Okay. I will be doing my question over Tolstoy's The Death of Ivan Ilych. I am answering question number 1, which is examining these passages and or others. What does the character Ivan Ilych understand about the real or reality in this story? What does this story say about reality? Whenever I was going through the story, I found a quote that reads, "When tormented Ivan Ilych most was the deception, the lie, which for some reason they all accepted, that he was not dying but was simply ill, and that he only need keep quiet and undergo treatment, and then something very good would result. He, however, knew that do what they would, nothing would come of it, only still more agonizing suffering and death. This deception tormented him. They're not wishing to admit what they all knew and what he knew, but wanting to lie to him concerning his terrible condition, and wishing and forcing him to participate in that lie." This is the part that I believe that Ivan becomes aware of the falsity of his life. It's described more in the beginning of the story about how his family and friends really felt about him. It kind of gets inside their minds and how they were cordial with him and, were fine, but in reality, underneath all of that stuff, they didn't really care about him. Even though he was realizing that this is where he was, becoming aware of the falsity in his life, I don't think he yet realized that his family really did not care about him, or seeing that his relationships with his family and friends isn't as healthy as he thought he might have thought. He soon realizes that he has never quite been happy with his life. Within the story, that was more in the beginning, but throughout the story, there was another quote, and it says, "It occurred to him that what had appeared perfectly impossible before, namely that he had not spent his life as he should have done, might after all be true. It occurred to him that his scarcely perceptible attempts to struggle against what was considered good by the most highly placed people, those scarcely noticeable impulses which he had immediately suppressed, might have been the real thing, and all the rest false. And his professional duties and the whole arrangement of his life and of his family and all of his social and official interests might have all been false. He tried to defend all of those things to himself, suddenly felt the weakness of what he was defending. There was nothing to defend." This is when I believe that he realizes that, he reaches this conclusion that he was living a lie for most of his life, and in reality had not lived as great of a life as he once thought. I think that quote really shows that he wasn't just thinking about his professional life or his family life or his friends, but he was thinking of all the different aspects of his life and how false they were in his mind compared to the reality of it all. From this, after he realized that, I think that he took that and blamed it more on his family and friends about how it was their fault that his life was a lie because they were living a lie as well. So I think, what's the other question? What does this story say about reality? I think that Tolstoy really used a almost humorous or hard to believe look at reality, almost as if things could really be that bad. I think what this story is trying to say about reality is, people might think that they have it all, or, if they have one thing in their life complete, such as his job, or, as long as he could play his game, that he was living a good life. But in reality, he didn't really have anything because he didn't have those relationships with those people as he might have thought. I think the story uses his close colleagues and his wife as characters that show how caring and ungenuine they were in the beginning of the story, but he also showed how easy life was for Ivan as long as his, certain things in his life were good, as long as he could avoid his wife and as long as he could have a job, that he was fine. But it wasn't until later when Ivan truly accepted that he has been living from false happiness in his life. I think that Tolstoy did a really good job of showing this within the story about how dramatically different those two, the reality and what he was living. I think he showed a good comparison of how different they were. throughout the whole story.